And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, May 24th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Man, I'm going to whiff on this. Eight game main slate for tonight. For some strange reason, I thought it was 10, and I just had it mixed up in my head. But either way,
so good job.
Why would I have listened to you 30 seconds ago? This show hadn't started yet. As far as I'm concerned, that's just squawking in the background.
How's that?
Guys, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are below our bodies. Adam, what's up?
How's it going? Looking forward to another baseball slate. I like the days we have too, because when it goes poorly on the first one, you get to just run it back.
Did it go poorly on the first one?
Yeah, I didn't have Kopech. He scored 35.
That'll do it.
Yep.
That'll do it. Makes me feel a little bit better because I certainly wasn't going to have him in the early run of things that I did. So dodge that one.
Stacked the Twins, which was the winning stack. Just didn't have Kopech.
Lots to talk about here. We trimmed a couple minutes off of this one, so that feels pretty good for me. I'm ready to just dive into this one, but I want to get your thoughts quickly. Do the Celtics come back?
So, I mean, nothing for me has changed since we talked about it yesterday because I didn't watch the game. So,
yeah. Okay. I love that they won yesterday, though. It's so fun. If they get this next one, it's a coin flip.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they already dropped, I think they're like plus 220.
Yeah, it's something crazy like that.
Yeah, I thought about betting it yesterday, and it was like, like plus 750 or something. I was just like, that's not even the value that I really wanted there.
No, it doesn't. That doesn't feel as appealing as it should be. It's going to be fun to see it happen. I hope. I want it so bad. If it gets to Game 7, it's just a dream.
Because, like, I know enough Boston fans that I would really like them to be miserable.
Yeah,
but also,
I still want the Denver win. Then that's the key piece,
right? For sure.
Part of me wants Miami to win just so it's easier for Denver.
Right. Yeah. There's that for me. And then there's just, I want Miami to win because I have Boston friends that will be really unhappy.
Do you have any futures left?
No, I cashed out the Lakers one. I think I bet the Nuggets game 1 and then I cashed it out, I think. So yeah, I mean, won that one, but no futures left.
Tokyo Swan said, I think Miami is a harder matchup for Denver. They're not even close. Not even in the ballpark of close. You ready to do this? You ready to talk some baseball?
I think Denver is clearly better than either team, but
I mean that the Denver Boston line, if that were to happen, would be ultra close.
Yeah, I mean Denver has been what I thought they should be, but not what I necessarily thought they would be.
Denver has been what I thought Boston would be.
Yeah.
To a degree, at least. If Boston would have ran into like Milwaukee in the end of it all and had some struggles, I'd have been like, okay, those were the two best teams. Didn't see this one coming at all. First game up, New York Yankees, 4.4 run implied total against your Baltimore Orioles. Nestor Cortez and Tyler Wells pitching in this one. Why is that not pulling through? That's just annoying. In 1 second, I will tell you how owned some of these guys are. I made so many changes to this sheet today, and none of it is like valid any longer. It's got all these old references and shit. It's because I had to duplicate a sheet, and now everything's going to the old one, even though nothing's in it. 32% owned for Cortez, 7.5 for Wells. So call it 30 and 7. No,
44 for Cortez.
Did it just get updated?
I don't know.
44. Are you serious? He's up 12%.
Yeah, we have him on DraftKings. We have him at 44.
It was 32 on the last update. It was the right pull.
It was 32 this morning.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was. I was reading it correctly. It just happened to be updated since then. 44% owned for Cortez, 4 for Wells. Let's start with Cortez. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about that ownership? Is that price just too hard to ignore?
So I don't feel very confident in him for a couple of reasons. One, he's facing the Orioles, which you know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Two, he hasn't been as good this year, and I do read into that a little bit more with somebody like Cortez because he doesn't have great stuff. He relies on deception. He relies on, giving you different, different arm angles, viewpoints, releases, release spots. So release points rather. So I do like when you're somebody that throws 100 miles an hour and you have nasty stuff, if you get out to a slow start, it's like, okay, whatever. It's probably going to be fine. I am a little bit more concerned with Cortez. He has a 4.5 FIP this year. He's striking out about 23 to 24% of hitters, which is fine, but he's giving up more power than usual. 191 expected ISO to righties so far this year. Last year, it was like 117. Now, again, the most likely case is that he just gets back to what he's done over the last few seasons, but I do just get a little bit more nervous with him. The price tag offsets a lot of the hesitation in rostering him, offsets a lot of the concerns that I just mentioned, but then the price tag also comes with 44% ownership, which is a lot. So I think he's a perfectly fine play. Like I get why the ownership is there when you combine the price point with his track record over the last few years as a pitcher, but compared to guys like Senga, Miller, Stroman, I think he's going over-owned. Then there's other guys that I think he's going, over-owned in comparison to as well.
Okay. What about on the opposite side here with Wells? Do you want to use him at all to attack the Yankees? 9,300 for today.
Yeah, so I think he's going under-owned, but also it's going to be tough to get there. You mentioned it, 9,300. DraftKings has gotten really aggressive with their pitcher pricing lately, but this slate's a little bit weird because it seems like they've incorporated, at least part of what they've been incorporating lately is how guys are pitching or have pitched this year. So it's sort of, it's tighter, but what you also see is that like Cortez's price tag came down because he hasn't pitched that well. You have Sandy Alcantara at 8,300 because he's pitching in cores. So when you combine some guys sort of free falling in salary with bumping somebody like Tyler Wells to 9,300, it becomes tough to get to him. He is projected to go quite a bit under owned. He's only getting 4 to 5% ownership on DraftKings, and we have him with the 5th highest top 2 pitcher percentage at 14%. So I think he's fine in tournaments, but the problem is just that in most lineups, you're either going to be able to get to somebody more likely to succeed, like Bryce Miller or Kodai Senga, or you're going to be able to get to somebody that's a better value, like, well, I mean, Cortez and Stroman, we both have more likely to succeed at a cheaper price. But even, outside of those guys, you have, Alcantara at a cheaper price tag. You have, Matt Boyd at 7,400. You have Paxton at 8,900. So there's just, it's a really awkward price point to get to him. So I think he's fine if like you're going to a popular stack, you can afford him without really giving anything up. And you just want to say, all right, hopefully Tyler Wells has a good game. That's fine. But it is obviously a dangerous matchup against the Yankees. And he's just at a difficult price point to get to.
All righty. Let's then have a little bit of a conversation here about top stacks. I think that's probably the easiest spot for us to go next. You want to start with your Yankees or do you want to start with your Orioles?
We can start with the Yankees.
Okay. Obviously, they look, parts of the Yankee stack looks fantastic.
Yeah, middle of the pack, I think, for me. Wells has had some power issues this year. His strikeout stuff's been good. He struck out 24% of hitters, 24.5% of hitters so far. He's only walked 5.6%, but everything else is a little bit concerning. 4.87 FIP, 1.9 home runs per 9. When you look at his expected power numbers, 229 expected ISO to righties. Now, he does only have a 300 expected WOBA, and he only has a 316 expected WOBA to lefties, but a 226 expected ISO. So this is somebody that has generally been good at getting strikeouts, at not walking guys, at limiting overall production, but he does have a tendency to give up power. And when you're playing in Yankee Stadium instead of Camden Yards, that is a pretty big issue. So it is a high upside spot for the Yankees. I don't think it's a great spot overall, because overall I do think Wells is a good pitcher. You only have a 4.3 implied run total. You have a solid Baltimore bullpen, particularly the back end of it. Like if you get, and I mean, this is the case with most, or at least a lot of good teams, if you get 7th, 8th, 9th inning and you haven't scored a lot of runs, you're probably not going to. But when you're talking about going up against Cano and Bautista at the back end of this game, obviously, Bautista gave up the home run to Judge last night, but you're not really adding runs on these guys. Now, I don't know if Bautista will be available. He's pitched 3 of the last 4, but point being, Baltimore's got a pretty solid back end of the bullpen. So that combined with Wells overall being a good pitcher makes it not the most appealing spot. But just from a home run standpoint, you have power here with Torres, Judge, Rizzo, Bader, Bowers, for against a pitcher that does at times struggle with that.
How about the opposite side here? Are you going to get to your boys? Because I'm a little interested today.
They are very difficult to make a strong case for as far as like what, thinking that they're likely to succeed. We have them with a 3.5% chance of being the top stack. We have them third from the bottom in stack score because they're relatively expensive, at least the guys that you would typically want to roster. But it's just a good lineup that isn't getting ownership. And they're one of the teams that I've said it a lot this year. It's kind of just, if you played them every slate, you are probably making money because either they're in a good spot and they're popular, but they're in a good spot, or they're not popular and they're still just coming through because they have so much power and speed in this lineup. So yeah. I do think that they still look okay. And I mentioned that Cortez has had some issues with right-handed power this year. 191 expected ISO. You have Rutschman, Mountcastle, Santander, Hayes, 2 through 5, all from the right side. James McCann hitting 7th as a very cheap catching option if you can't afford Rutschman. Mateo, we know, gives you a lot of upside, but he's been hitting absolutely horribly. Started out the year as one of the best hitters in baseball. It was obviously not going to be sustained, but he's quickly just getting right back to like league average with how bad he's hit so far this month, and he's still expensive. But that 2 through 5 is pretty nice. Austin Hayes in particular has been hitting really well this year. I was looking up some stats on Gunnar Henderson yesterday and actually tweeted those out. But while I was doing that, noticed that Austin Hayes has the 13th highest hard hit percentage of all qualified hitters so far this year. $3,800 price tag hitting 5th. That's going to look pretty good. So I think these stacks are kind of similar. It's going to feel a little bit better getting to the Yankee side because you do have a little bit. I mean, you have Aaron Judge, so there's that. And then you also just have like a more name value on Nestor Cortez compared to Tyler Wells. But really, I don't think as a whole the Orioles offense is that much worse than the Yankees, and I don't think Tyler Wells is that much worse than Nestor Cortez.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I'm very intrigued by Baltimore as a sort of way to get different. I think they're going to end up being my third stack as like a team where when it's right for Baltimore, I'm going to corner the market. But I agree with the way that you said it out of the gate. They are clearly not at the top of a list of like likely top stacks, but it's the ownership to Cortez is really helping out a little bit here too.
Yeah,
because
that's a good point.
The moment that dies, like it looks better.
Yeah, and that's another. Not that like I'm guaranteeing the Orioles are actually 1.5% owned in the aggregate, but the amount of ownership likely to come into Cortez does sort of just solidify that the Orioles can't get that much ownership.
Exactly. Yeah, there's not a lot. Nope. If you want to take one and make it 3 across the board, like it's not going to be a boost that I care about all that much. All right, rank the pieces of this game.
They're all kind of similar. So like Cortez, I guess first, just because he's 8,100. Clearly, the field isn't wrong in getting to him a lot. So like I guess he has to be first. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like the third piece of this game as far as my personal exposures go. But just from a like what projects the best here, I think it's Cortez, Yankees, Wells, Orioles.
Okay. Let's go to game number 2 then. Nats and Padres, 4.5 run implied total for the Nats, 5.4 for the Pods. Trevor Williams and Ryan Weathers, neither guy getting any ownership. Are you going to either one of these pitchers here today?
I don't really think so. Maybe if they were a little bit cheaper, but Weathers coming in at $7K, Williams coming in at 7,200. I've talked about Williams a few times this year, just how drastic his splits between righties and lefties have been. And this year you're getting a little bit worse version of that. Like if you go back to last year, 29% K percentage against righties, 277 expected WOBA, but only struck out lefties 10% of the time with a 361 expected WOBA. This year, So far, the strikeout percentage against righties is 22% instead of 29. 328 expected WOBA, but also a 224 expected ISO to righties. So he's striking them out a lot less. He's giving up a lot more power than he was. He's still not striking out lefties. 12.5% clip there. He's still getting lit up by lefties. 363 expected WOBA, 248 expected ISO. So it sets up as a really good spot for Cronenworth, Soto, Carpenter. Odor and Sullivan are left, and Grisham are left-handed as well, but obviously not in the same group of hitters as those guys at the top. But also, you're not going to shy away from Tatis and Bogarts, not that you ever should, but the fact that Trevor Williams has had issues with right-handed power this year should make you feel better about it. So not interested in the pitching. Padres look really good. Yeah. The other side for the Nats is sort of interesting because Ryan Weathers has been bad essentially throughout his time in the major leagues. He is still really young. Maybe he turns it around. But going back to the start of the 2021 season, only a 17% K percentage to righties, 184 expected ISO, 344 expected WOBA. So far this year, he's been better at limiting power to righties in a limited sample, but still a 343 expected WOBA, only an 11% strikeout percentage. He has been really good against lefties, but that doesn't matter too much when you have 3 lefties in the lineup. So like if you get a lineup with 6 righties in it, typically it's going to look pretty good against Weathers. The problem is that most of the righties in this lineup aren't very good. So the Nats, I think, look okay. They are really cheap. Lane Thomas, Joey Meneses, Stone Garrett, all reasonable value plays to get to. Candelario's 3,200 as well, batting cleanup. But it is a really bad offense. Not going to feel too comfortable getting there. They're coming in 6th in stack score, and that's with a 15% chance of being the top value stack. They're 1st in top value percentage. It's just that pitching on this slate, you don't have those 12K plus pitchers. It's not going to be that difficult to build good lineups with, solid pitching options. So I don't think you're going to need to get down to the Nats bats all that much, even though they are good values.
Yeah, I don't mind the Nats all that much. They do grade out like relatively positively in comparison to current ownership, but I'm willing to get to the Pods here. While they are pulling ownership, I don't mind getting to a little bit more. And the guys that are pulling the big numbers, the Tatis and Sotos of the world, those aren't the guys that are going to bother me as much with high ownership numbers. They're the guys that should absolutely have it. So I do have my eye on San Diego. This is much more of an offense game than a pitching game, right? Like you're going to Padres and Nats long before you get to Trevor Williams or Ryan Weathers.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think it's Padres, skip a beat, Nats, draw a massive line, Weathers and Williams.
Okay. Anything else in this one that we should be pointing out? How much of the pod side do you think is going to be guys you're looking at in cash games? I'm guessing Tatis and Soto right out of the gate if you have the money for it. Or do you think you're going to end up with a lot of the Marlins?
Yeah, I mean, the Marlins are probably going to be the first priority there. 5.9 implied run total for them. But yeah, I mean, Tatis is going to be a top option. Soto is going to be a top option if you can afford it. Bogarts is going to be pretty high up there. $2,900 Matt Carpenter is going to look good.
Yeah. Just with pitching prices today, and like the Marlins aren't ridiculously expensive for the scenario that they have. I think you might have a little bit of extra salary for some like true real life upgrades throughout a lineup. I don't have anything else here for Nats or Pods.
Me neither.
All righty, folks. Schedule for the rest of the night. We got 2 more shows. We've got MLB Live Before Lock coming up next, 6 p.m., taking you all the way up to the top of the hour. And then we've got PGA Live Before Lock tonight, 8 to 9. I think it's the RBC something this week. Could be wrong. They'll tell you more on the PGA show. I don't know enough about PGA. I know enough about golf. I just don't know enough about PGA DFS. But you guys should watch that show. Ben's going to carry you guys to victory. I'm quite confident in it. So make sure you're watching the shows that we've got coming up next. Hit the like button if you can. Let's see if we could run that number a little bit higher. And then let's talk lineup generator. That's the biggie right now. You're watching an MLB show. You should want our lineup generator if you haven't tried it yet. 50% off your first week. It's going to be less than $5. Let's just start here. If you don't like it, cancel it anytime during that week. You're only out the original cost, $4.48. Now, whether you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel, first things first, you're going to pick your stacks. If you want to go 5-3 on DK, or maybe you want to go 4-4 or 5 and you don't want to worry about the other stack on FanDuel, you want to go 4-4, 4-3, or 4-2-2. You pick your stacks. You can pick contrarian builds, chalky builds, balance builds, lock a player in, swap players around if you want, export up to 20 via CSV. We generate all of the lineups on the back end, so you don't have to worry about that piece. And then we call that list. We get rid of all the lineups that we don't think grayed out well, things that you shouldn't be playing. We present the rest to you. It's that easy. If you like that lineup, you click save. If you don't like it, you click discard. Another one just pops up in front of your face. And you can reevaluate on that. And you'll see projections and ownership and optimal rates. You can't beat this, folks. Please check out the lineup generator. Link in the description or in chat. What in the world did I just miss?
I don't know. Somebody being drunk on a Wednesday.
That guy's name says Ryan, not Adam. In what world are you judging someone for drinking during the middle of a week?
I mean, at least I don't do it in YouTube chat.
Well, no, we've got respect for ourselves. Game 3, you ready?
Yeah.
Braves and Dodgers, 4.7 run implied total for the Braves, 4.6 for the Dodgers. Bryce Elder and Tony Gonsolin. Neither guy really pulling any ownership. Elder, 9,600, second most expensive pitcher on today's slate. Gonsolin, 8,500. Are you seeing it here, or is this a spot where, like, because Elder's decent, Gonsolin's decent, but at the same time, it is the Braves and Dodgers offenses on the opposite sides.
Yeah, they sort of look like Tyler Wells, where they're going under-owned, but they're also, I think, just going to be pretty difficult to get to at their respective salaries. 9,600 for Elder against the Dodgers is a really tough sell. He's been solid enough, 21% strikeout percentage, 3.34 FIP, but that's not $9,600 versus the Dodgers good. I am a little bit more intrigued by the Gonsolin side because he's only 8,500. He's a good real life pitcher. He's not a great strikeout pitcher, but he's a good real life pitcher. The biggest issue for him in DFS is typically that the Dodgers keep him on a pretty short leash, but he's thrown at least 80 pitches in 4 straight starts. He threw a season high 94 pitches last time out. He's still only gone 6 innings in 1 start this year, but the fact that he got to 94 pitches last time and he's thrown at least 80 in 4 straight makes me think if he's pitching well and being relatively efficient, there's nothing stopping him from getting to the 6th inning. But it is still a tough matchup against the Braves. He still doesn't have great strikeout stuff. I think that he's going to be easier to get to than Elder since he is $1,100 less. Like, I think when you look, comparing him to Sandy Alcantara is interesting. Like, $200 price difference. We have Gonsolin with a 10.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. We have Alcantara with a 12.5% chance. We have Alcantara 5 times as popular. That one is an interesting spot to pivot if you need to save some ownership. But I don't think you're prioritizing either pitcher. It's just easier to find like a pivot spot to get the Gonsolin than I think it is Elder, given their salaries.
Okay. Yeah, not a spot that I'm expecting to have a ton of. As I look at it right now, do I even have either one of these guys? I don't. I didn't get a share of either, and I don't mind that, really. This is a tough game to target just because of, like, both of the pitchers are good enough to make 2 good offenses mute themselves a little bit on this particular slate. Like, how do you want to handle going to the Braves and Dodgers? Dodgers are 5th in top stack. Braves are 8th. They're both pulling like middle of the pack-ish ownership. They seem to be, I mean, I guess the Braves are probably a bit under-owned right now. Is that where you're looking first?
Yeah, probably.
Flip that. They're very over-owned.
Yeah. I'll say both teams are pulling more ownership than I expected. Dodgers coming in 7th in stack score, 7% chance of being the top stack, 7% projected ownership. Braves coming in 5th from the bottom in stack score, 8% ownership, 5% chance of being the top stack. But the thing with Atlanta is you do have to typically keep in mind that they're one of the teams where their aggregate ownership is going to be a little bit misleading because Ronald Acuna is just always going to be so popular. So that pulls it up, pulling up their individual ownership now. But I expect that you're going to see Acuna Acuna pulling 15%, d'Arnaud and Riley at about 10, Olsen at 7, everybody else like 5 or below. So as a stack, they're not that popular, but it's still a pretty tough matchup. Same for the Braves against Gonsolin. I don't mind ever getting to either team just because they're so talented, but typically I prefer, if I'm taking them against pretty good pitchers, I prefer doing it when they're getting, 2-3% ownership, not like 6 to 8.
I actually have the Braves as a slightly higher top stack, Dodgers slightly lower. I kind of have these guys inverse, but I also don't think that it's going to matter all that much. This just feels like you're grabbing individual pieces of like the really good dudes and then going about your business elsewhere. Like, do you expect to have a lot of this game?
Not particularly. This game's weird. Like, it's one of those that we talk about a lot where the medium projections across the board are just going to make it not that appealing because you have 2 good pitchers, you have 2 good offenses, and there's still a lot of upside because in a 1-game sample, you're just going to get either a pitcher probably putting up a big game or an offense going off. But the things that make it still relatively unappealing for me is, one, it's expensive. So it's not like you're looking at one of those situations like we had with the Tigers and I think like KC the other day, or Tigers and Nats, whatever it was, where you had like a $6K pitcher facing a bunch of $2,500 hitters. And it's just like, all right, well, somebody's going to easily pay off their salary because everything is cheap. You can get a solid start from Bryce Elder that you have no interest in at $9,600, but that also limits the Dodgers, and vice versa for Gonsolin at $8,500. And then the other thing that's a little bit different, you're not getting ownership to the pitching. So I do think they're somewhat interesting in tournaments. But again, Elder's so expensive that I think Gonsolin's the only one I probably could get to. But you're getting ownership to the bats. Normally, when you talk about attacking games like this, where median projections aren't telling the whole story, the stacks are coming in with a lot lower ownership.
I see so little to talk about here and so many like legitimately real things that you can roster. It's such a weird situation when you get like, just because of, salaries and the way that things exist on the rest of the slate, so many all-star type bats that you're just like, yeah, if they end up in a lineup, they end up in a lineup.
Right. Yeah. That's really, I'm looking at it where it's like, if I got to a good amount of Braves or Dodgers, I'm never going to be upset about that. Yeah. But they don't look like the most under-owned teams. They don't look like the best projected teams. They don't look like the cheapest teams. So I don't really have anything to point to say why I think they're great.
All right. Let's rank the game. Good luck.
Dodgers, Braves, Gonsolin, Elder.
Yeah. I'll go Elder, Gonsolin, Braves, Dodgers. Like that's how this game looks right now. I could run that order back in reverse, and it's not like the most outlandish take in the world. Tough game to get to, but also don't feel bad about any of the pieces that you get if you do it. Boy, Cubs, Mets, 3.5 run implied total. Both of these teams basically. Marcus Stroman and Senga going here. Big time pitcher ownership. Kodai Senga getting 38% ownership at 9,200. Stroman is 24% owned at 8,600. If you're choosing between the pitchers, which one do you get to first?
Probably Senga. I think that they are two of the best pitching options. We have the wind blowing in 15 to 20 miles an hour in Wrigley. Game only has a 7-run total. It's come up a bit since this morning. It was 6.5, but still a 3.5 implied run total for both teams. Senga's been good at getting strikeouts this year. He hasn't been great at anything else. 29.5% strikeout percentage is good, very good. 14% walk percentage is not good. 4.35 FIP is mediocre. 1.26 home runs per 9 is, not great. But his expected power numbers aren't really that concerning. 151 expected ISO to righties, 133 to lefties, 303 expected WOBA to righties, 320 to lefties. And then again, you get the wind blowing in, which does mitigate some of the power issues. So 9,200 for him is just going to look pretty good. He's first in top 2 pitcher percentage on DraftKings at 29%. He's pulling the second most ownership behind Cortez. On the other side, Stroman's coming in fourth from the top in top 2 pitcher percentage at 18%, pulling 24%. But he is a little bit cheaper at 8,600. He's been solid again this year. 22.5% strikeout percentage, 3.56 FIP, not giving up a lot of power. That's, he typically does not give up power. So you're just getting mostly what you're used to from Stroman. He has been striking out righties at a 27% clip this year. You don't have too many righties. It's 4 righties in the Mets lineup, but only 4 in the top 6. The 8 and 9 hitters are both right-handed as well. So it's going to skew left-handed in terms of at-bats versus Stroman. 17% strikeout percentage to lefties, 27 to righties. But overall, just a solid pitcher at a good price tag in good pitching conditions.
Duncan Jerkowitz hit us with the super chat. Win or lose, always a fun listen. Thanks for the show, guys. Thanks for the super chat, man. Glad you're here. First super chat from Duncan ever, so we appreciate that. I actually have 0 Marcus Stroman right now, so that'll be fun to watch him just mow down righties for the first time ever, like you were just talking about. I don't need that shit. I thought you said he was striking out righties at like a 27% clip.
He is, but he's facing a left-handed heavy lineup.
Sure, but I don't expect Marcus Stroman to be striking out 27% of anything, generally speaking. So if he's going to strike out 27% of righties, I'm nervous.
Yeah, I haven't totally figured out what is different with him. I know he's throwing a sweeper now, but it's not showing up in the pitch type data that I'm looking at. So I can't really figure out if he's, what he has changed. But 27% K percentage against righties this year compared to 19% last year.
Do you have any interest in the number 14 or number 16 top stacks for today in the Mets and Cubs?
I do not. 2 good enough pitchers, not great hitting conditions. If I went to a side, it would probably be the Cubs, just because Senga is a little bit more of a wild card than Stroman. Stroman's been in the league for a long time. He's always been a good ground ball pitcher that has mediocre strikeout stuff. You've seen more of the same this year, except for an uptick in strikeouts. Senga at least gives you that. I guess, not that Stroman can't blow up, but Senga gives you a little bit more blow up potential. Either way, though, I doubt I'm getting to this game.
Rank them.
The bats, rather.
Which this should be about as easy as it gets.
Yeah. Senga, Stroman, Cubs.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Senga, Stroman doesn't matter.
Yep.
All righty, folks. Well, up to 330 viewers, 44 likes. Let's keep running that like number up. Hit the thumbs up. We got to talk a little bit about the sponsor of this show. That's going to be Prize Picks. I love talking Prize Picks. It's so simple. I talk about Prize Picks basically every single day. Be ready, folks. MLB Prize Picks video coming from me probably sometime next week, or at the very least whenever the NBA season ends. For now, though, the deal is this. Link in the description. 1 month of Stochastic Plus Platinum free by using this deal. That right there is over $100 in value. 2, you also get a $100 deposit match bonus at Prize Picks. So if you put in 100 at Prize Picks, you get 100, and you're getting the value of a Stochastic Plus Platinum package. Amazing deal. Now, in this case, you're putting together a card that can net up to basically a lineup that'll net up to 10x your entry fees if you go 5 for 5, 25x if you go 6 for 6. But you don't even have to get it all perfect. If you go 4 and 1 on a 5-pick card, you'll get 2x your money. Even if you go 3 and 2, you still get a little bit back. We have tons of content at Stochastic that will help you out on Prize Picks. I focus mainly on the NBA side for right now, but there's still a bazillion different options on the baseball end. I find the baseball ones hard. I'm really excited to dive in. You got 2 really good hot dog plays for today. Adam's boy Sandy Alcantara over 4 pitcher strikeouts feels pretty good. Yeah, you also get Shane McClanahan over 4.5 pitcher strikeouts. That game locks in about an hour. But you could hit things like total bases or pitches thrown, hitter and pitcher fantasy scores. It's a great spot if you're looking for something a little bit different, maybe out off the DFS path, more into the sports bookie type path. Either way, link in the description. Sign up for Prize Picks. 4 more games to go, man. We got Royals and Tigers coming up next. 4.4 run implied total for the Royals, 4.3 for the Tigers. Zach Greinke, who I think only pitches on the days that I do MLB shows. I think I've talked about every single one of his starts. And then your former boy, Matt Boyd, neither guy pulling all that much ownership, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you'd prefer to get to Boyd if you had to.
Yeah, I would. 7,400 for Boyd is, I think, actually reasonable. Good pitcher's park, decent matchup. There's no Salvador Perez. There's one good right-handed hitter in this lineup in Bobby Witt. Boyd's biggest issues are dealing with right-handed power. He's allowed a 192 expected ISO, a 337 expected WOBA to righties this year. Lefties sub 100 expected ISO, 261 expected WOBA. Strikeouts haven't been great, but typically does a better job of limiting power to lefties. Going back to 2020, 647 pitches thrown to lefties, 101 expected ISO. So I do like this Kansas City lineup for Boyd. Again, not a priority. If I don't get to him, great, but he does actually look decent at 7,400. I think it's more difficult to get to Greinke. He's really cheap at 5,700, but just basically non-existent strikeout stuff, and I don't think you're gonna need the savings.
Yeah, I don't find either side of that all that appealing. So let's talk offenses.
Somebody said so Salvi isn't a good righty. I was only naming people that were in the starting lineup. I'm gonna get at bats.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Generally, and this is just in my experience of playing DFS, rostering guys or getting guys in your lineup that are in the lineup today, so much easier to accrue fantasy points.
I don't know. Shrek just won a tournament with Nolan Gorman off the bench the other day.
Really?
Yep.
Off the bench?
Yeah, pinch hit home run.
How did he talk at all about why that happened? Just
accident,
asleep at the wheel type stuff? I mean, we've all been there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't get the pinch hit home run, though.
Yeah, no, I've never gotten the pinch hit home run. I've lost to the pinch hit home run. But I get the NBA lock button best game of the season for 2 guys at the same time.
Yeah. You're not really in any position to be mad about that particular one. You've cashed your one time on.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. That's there's no coming back from that one. Like you did it. All right. So Royals are 12th in top stack, but they're a decent value. They're third. Tigers are 7th in top stack, a bit better, and they're a better value as well. Now, Tigers are pulling a little bit more ownership. Which side of this one do you want to get to, if at all?
I prefer the Tiger side. Boyd's not good, but he's better than Greinke, I think. Perez not being in just really screws up this Royals lineup for me. The guys that I like on Kansas City, like normally I like Bobby Witt, I like Perez, I like Pasquantino, I like Prado, I like Melendez. Those are the 5 that it's just like, this is why I'm going to get to KC, because they actually have this section of the lineup that's good. But 3 of those guys are left-handed. Not to say that Matt Boyd is, not to say you can't play those guys. You get Boyd out early, you get into the bullpen, or they just get hits against a mediocre Matt Boyd. Like they can still get there, but it's not it doesn't set up that well for them. Bobby Witt looks really good. Matt Duffy's leading off. He's cheap. He has virtually no power. He just slaps the ball around. Not the most exciting DFS guy to get to. Olivares is okay at 2,900, but it's a really shitty Kansas City lineup that they're running out there today. Not to say that Detroit's lineup isn't, but you at least have the platoon advantage for Riley Green. Baez, McKinstry at the top. Torkelson's cheap. Vierling's actually been hitting the ball hard this year, but Du's really cheap. Normally, I would say I prefer the KC side because of the talent. Here, I think it's really close because they still have more talent, but most of the talent is lefty-lefty against Boyd. I think they're kind of very similar plays where you're just taking cheap stacks against mediocre to bad pitching.
Chuck Deuces said the lock of Anunoby and Graham changed the way I play NBA DFS forever, and it's paid off. If it was a mistake, it was a great one for me too. That was not the method that you should have modeled after.
I forgot Graham was the other one. I remembered OG.
By the way, have you opened your DraftKings chest for today?
No.
Yeah.
Did you get a good one?
Of course not.
Yeah.
Is it even possible to get a good one?
I got 500,000 once.
Did you really? Recently?
Crowns, not dollars.
Yeah, no shit. You didn't get $500,000, man. I would know. You wouldn't work for us.
Shit. Now I'd be even, man. But yeah, I don't know. It was like maybe 2 months ago.
How clutch were those 500,000 crowns?
They'd be better now.
Fair. Yeah, I don't even know why I'm wasting my time. I assume I'm gonna get diddly shit like I normally do. Who did you just talk about?
Kansas City and Detroit bats. That
you went both
this
ways.
game this game's kind of just the opposite of that Atlanta Dodgers game, where everybody is generally cheap. So like there's gonna be good value from this game. I just don't know where it's coming from because it's a bunch of bad hitters facing a bunch of bad pitchers.
Yeah, I don't really know how much of this I'm going to be getting to. I don't have much at all right now, and I don't like that.
I assume I'm going to be getting to more than I'm comfortable with, and I think that's a good thing in that I think this is a very useful game. It's a scary thing in that I don't particularly want a lot of the Tigers or Boyd or the Royals.
I basically don't have any of it, and I don't like it at all. We'll see where that ends up when we get to lock, because I think they grade out a little bit better than it first seems. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to get to maybe they're just a little over-owned for me, and that's what's driving them down. I think I'm more likely to get to the Tigers than I am the Royals, but maybe I'll just end up with basically a flat 0 across the board. We'll cross that game off and hope for the best. Anything else? Rank the game.
Kind of like the Atlanta game, but opposite. I guess Detroit, KC, Boyd, Greinke. Detroit's fourth in stack score for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's carrying a lot of weight with that value, huh?
But they're also 6% to be top stack, so it's not like they're that far down the list there. They're basically the same as Colorado in cores.
I have him a bit lower in top stack odds, but looking comparable in stack score just because of that value.
I have a feeling I'm either they could both happen, I guess, but they kind of don't go together since they're cheap. I have a feeling I'm going to get to either more Detroit bats or more Matthew Boyd than you should want to get to.
All right. Well, let's get to the biggie. We're off the cores now. Rockies 4.8 run implied total. Marlins 6. Carl Kaufman going for Colorado. Sandy Alcantara going for Miami. No ownership going to Kaufman at 5K. 16% ownership going to Sandy at 8,300. This should be the talking point, I guess. This is down. It was 23% before we started this show, and now there's more ownership going into Cortez. Who's the better pitcher for today? Cortez or Alcantara?
I mean, I have Cortez projected quite a bit higher.
Okay.
I think that in terms of range of outcomes, Alcantara's probably not getting as much ownership as he should relative to Cortez. We have Cortez like 1.75 times as likely to be a top 2 scoring pitcher. We have him getting 3 times the ownership, give or take, a little shy of 3 times the ownership. So I think that Cortez is probably a little bit more popular than he should be relative to Alcantara. But yeah, I already mentioned Tony Gonsolin rather, in that mix as well. If you're getting, so you have 44% projected for Cortez at 8,100. You have 16 projected for Alcantara at 8,300. You have 3 for Gonsolin at 8,500. So like 63 total, 63 total percent ownership. You're probably getting like the optimal way to approach it is probably around 16 Alcantara and then just turning some of that Cortez into more Gonsolin.
Yeah. I think, that probably makes sense. I mean, you obviously already know how much Sandy I have, so I'm going you full bore into Colorado.
You have him projected like 5 points higher than I do.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've got him right now as my second highest projected pitcher on the slate behind Bryce Miller.
Yeah, I do not have that.
Is it crazy?
Yes and no. Like, it's not crazy in that if it happens, it's not like it's going to be shocking. It's a good pitcher against a bad offense. Yeah. You still have a pitcher pitching in Coors Field against a team with a 4.6 implied run total as your second highest scoring pitcher. Like, I think that it's great. I have a hard time buying that as a median. I don't think it's like, I'm not saying I think it's his ceiling or something, but I have a hard time thinking that that's like an average result.
That price tag is just so appealing for today.
Yeah, but that's
for like his skill set. No. Now I'm just like having a open conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. The ceiling for him is certainly there. You know that he's allowed to work deep into games. He's a good strikeout, good enough strikeout pitcher. 22.6% K rate, 3.58 FIP this year. Doesn't give up a lot of power. The Rockies offense sucks. He has all of that working for him, but it's still a massive park downgrade going. Not only is he pitching in Coors, but normally he pitches in Miami.
Yeah, it's like a reverse for him, basically. Yeah. I'm going to have a bunch of them for today. I'm okay with that. When it comes to raw, like, it's sort of like if you get Braves bats or Dodgers bats, like I'm willing to just, if I'm getting to raw talent like that, I'm cool with it. It's obviously not fun going into Coors like that, but I mean, the Rockies lineup is ass. I wish this was the first game in Colorado for them because they're usually like, you get that hangover effect coming back and all, but I'm here for it. What about your boy Carl Kaufman on the other side, who somehow got a tweet out of you today?
Yeah, I don't know how this dude's in the major leagues.
Carson Wentz of baseball, right?
What?
I'm trying to wrap my head around the back and forth for you and Steve. So Carl Kaufman is the Carson Wentz of this team.
Yeah. So I think the comp from Washington to this team was Heineke being Kaufman, because my tweet was that I just don't understand how somebody like this even gets a chance. Like, one, he wasn't very good in the minors, but it's not like the guy averages like 89 miles an hour on his fastball. He doesn't get strikeouts. At his best, he gets ground balls. I don't understand, and again, I don't know Colorado's minor league system, but there have to be, I would think if you just don't have pitching prospects, just start grabbing guys that throw 98 miles an hour and throw them into games until you find one that like surprises you. At least if one of them ends up, like one of them has the chance to end up being good. The best case you're getting from this guy is that he like strings together a lucky half season and your stupid front office convinces themselves that they have something in him and now he has a spot for the next year or two in the rotation. So my comparison was to Taylor Heineke, who comes in as a backup, accidentally wins a couple of games and then is just playing quarterback the next year. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know how this guy is here. Like he walks guys. It's not even like, I was trying to think of like comps that have kind of stuck around, and I was like, all right, well, maybe Kyle Hendricks, but like Kyle Hendricks was a lot better in the minors. Kyle Hendricks never walked guys. This guy at some stages of the minors had a double-digit walk percentage. So, long story short, this guy sucks. His major league debut, he survived. He gave up 4 earned runs and 4 1/3 against Texas in Texas. My opinion of this guy is that when all is said and done with this guy's career, like probably a month from now, 4 runs in 4 innings is going to be like, oh, he pitched pretty well that day.
So you're not going to get to him? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting him. I would play Greinke before I play him.
Okay.
And it's not close.
All right. Well, then let's talk Marlins bats, because that's the important piece here. They are first in top stacks, second in ownership. They are a team that I'm going to be getting to pretty aggressively because of Carl Kaufman and the fact that we're in Colorado. How are you handling Miami?
Yeah, they look good. Kaufman is horrible. Obviously, they've disappointed a bit the last few days, but we don't have them getting much ownership right now, which I would say concerns me because it seems weird. But they also haven't really been as popular as expected the last couple of slates. And that is something we've talked about a lot, where people have gotten better at playing MLB tournaments over the last couple of years. And you just don't, even when you look at some of these offenses in cores, particularly when they're cheap, and it's just like, oh, across the board, these guys are going to be 35% owned. People just aren't making that play anymore. Like they're coming in at, mid-teens to 20%. So I do think, I don't know if it's, the increase in pricing is why their ownership came down. That's probably it. But I do kind of buy into today's ownership a little bit more. 12% seems like it might be a little bit low, but like I wouldn't expect them to be 20 plus or anything like that. So we do have them going a little bit under owned. Tops in stack score so far, 18% top stack percentage, only 12% ownership. They look very good. Kaufman is horrible. And if you can get to the increased prices, Birdie's up to 4,800, a Rise 57, Soler 55, 5K for Cooper. Everything else is pretty cheap though. De La Cruz, 4K, Gurriel, Wendell, 3K, Stallings, 2,500. So the bottom of the order is not giving you much power, but it does help you offset the top of the order. So certainly happy to get to Miami. I think it's pretty clearly the worst pitcher on the slate, and that's saying a lot when Zach Greinke is pitching.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of getting to Miami here. I have a massive amount, in particular, Birdie, with that MPE in the leadoff spot. He is in almost as much of my lineups as Sandy is. So Team Marlins for today. Great spot to be. Really comfortable there. How do you want to handle Colorado, who, at least in like my top stack sim, and honestly in ours too, they don't look good at all. This is a really not appealing spot to get to the Colorado Rockies in course.
Yeah, they don't look very good. The only thing that stands out is that they're not getting ownership. They're 2.5% owned, but not that implied run totals are the end all be all of anything, but to just sort of quickly like illustrate, they have a 4.6 implied run total. This isn't even Colorado from a day or two ago where it was like, all right, this team's not getting any ownership and they have the 3rd highest implied run total in the slate or whatever it was. Yeah. They have the same implied run total as the Angels. It's lower than the Red Sox. It's lower than the Mariners. It's not that much higher than the Tigers and Royals. It's lower than both sides of the Dodgers-Braves game. This is just, it's equal with the Nats, lower than the Padres. Like this is a not very good spot for Colorado.
Go Sandy, baby. It's the key piece for it all. Anything else in this one?
Sort of one of those. It's not quite to the extreme as like, Detroit versus Greinke or KC versus Boyd, but that is sort of one of those spots when you get that discount on Alcantara. He's probably either doing well at 8,300 or the Rockies are paying off their salaries.
Yeah, agreed. Let's hope he does well.
I shouldn't phrase it. I hate paying off, like the phrase paying off your salaries in baseball because it doesn't really exist. But like, they're an affordable stack doing well probably if Alcantara doesn't do well at 8,300.
Marlins, Sandy, Rockies, Kaufman.
Yes. Marlins, Sandy, Rockies, random relief pitcher, Kaufman.
Angels and Red Sox, 4.5 run implied total for the Angels, 4.7 for the Sox. Tyler Anderson and James Paxton. Anderson 4% owned, Paxton 11% owned. Is he just a guy today at 8,900 in this spot?
Sort of.
Okay.
I'm definitely intrigued by him because he has looked back in his first two starts of the year. And if he is back, 8,900 is a cheap price tag on James Paxton. This guy was one of the best pitchers in baseball prior to a bunch of injuries a few years ago. So I am intrigued. He's averaged over 96 miles an hour on his fastball each of his first two starts, had success in both of those starts, got strikeouts, gave up, I think, two runs in one run in the other. So like he's been solid, but it is still a tough park to pitch in. You do still have a 4.6 implied run total for the Angels. You have a dangerous Angels team. Trout and Ohtani are both in the lineup. So at 8,900, I think it's a very fair price. Is there a chance that he's actually a 10K pitcher? Yes. But there's also a chance that he's actually like a $7,500 pitcher. I think it's, I think it's more likely he's a 10K guy than 7K guy, at least for as long as he's healthy. But, the point being, 8,900 isn't exactly a cheap price tag. So the 11% ownership, I think, makes sense.
All right. Anything that you really are interested in here for Tyler Anderson? Probably under-owned, but I don't know if it matters.
Yeah, I think he's one of those. You see it a lot with cheap pitchers. He's 4% owned because who the hell wants to play Tyler Anderson against a team with a 4.9 implied run total? He's got an 8% chance of being a top two pitcher. But the thing to keep in mind, I know somebody asked on a show the other day, sort of how do you contextualize what a good, top stack or top two pitcher percentage is. The big thing to keep in mind is that when you talk about the top of the, pitching range, you're talking 20, 30, 40% chances of being a top two pitcher. When you talk the best offenses, you're talking like 15%. So if you say, this offense is 8% owned or 4% owned with an 8% chance of being successful, that basically means that they're not that much less likely than anybody else. And they're just not getting owned. When you talk about it in the sense of a pitcher, like he's a very low probability play that is just getting a little bit less ownership.
Stock Red Sox bats, third in top stack, eighth in value, fifth in stack score, but ninth in ownership. This seems like a place to target in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Tyler Anderson is a pitcher that I don't love taking batters against because it just feels like it never goes well. But 185 expected ISO to righties this year, 13.9% strikeout percentage. The big issue, I think, with Boston is they don't really have good righties. Justin Turner's 3,700. That looks okay. You're probably going to get Ref Snyder in the starting lineup, but that also means that there's a good chance you're getting Ref Snyder pinch hit for later. Devers is left-handed. Again, not that you can't roster these guys against lefties, but against lefties this year, not getting strikeouts, but a sub 100 expected ISO. Going back to last year, a sub 100 expected ISO for Anderson. Going back to 2021, a 106 expected ISO over the last 3 years for Anderson against left-handed hitters. So, it's certainly not the side that you want. Devers is left-handed. Yoshida's left-handed. Verdugo's left-handed. Casas is a cheap high upside guy that probably won't be in the lineup because he's left-handed. Duran is a typically cheap high upside guy that probably won't be in the lineup because he's left-handed. So it just makes it tougher because you get that pinch hit risk with Ref Snyder. There's some pinch hit risk with Kike Hernandez, though at 3,300, he is an interesting shortstop option. It's a spot that I thought I would like more. I'm still not going to be upset if I get to Boston. I like the park. I like the upside they offer. It's kind of like the KC spot for me, where the hitters that I most want to play on Boston, they're good hitters, so they're still playable, but they're on the wrong side of the platoon split against a pitcher that actually has been pretty dominant against same-handed hitters.
Do you have anything you want to touch on for the Angels other than Trout and Ohtani?
No, good park.
Renfroe, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, good park. I think you still have to consider Paxton a volatile pitcher, given that he's made essentially 2 starts in the last 3 years. And also, like, he did struggle in his rehab starts. So we've seen him look good in 2 major league starts. I do put weight into that for sure. But it's not like this guy just tore up the minor leagues and then came up and is dominating in the majors. He was walking like 15% of hitters in his rehab starts. There's still a lot of volatility here. So I think that from an upside standpoint, the Angels still look okay. But, 5% chance of being the top stack, 6% projected ownership, bottom half in stack score. It's not a spot I'm going out of my way to get to.
All right. Rank this game. Sox 1. How you going the rest of it?
Yeah, I think it's Sox 1, Paxton 2, Angels 3, Anderson 4.
All righty. Closing it out. Final game for today. MLB Live before lock coming up next. Mariners, big time run total here against the A's. Massive favorites. Bryce Miller on the hill for the Marlins. Ken Waldichuk was the starter for this game. He's going to be the long man now. Looks like Austin Pruitt is going to open ahead of him. Bryce Miller, 33% owned at 10,100, most expensive pitcher on the slate. Waldichuk was getting some ownership at 5,300, but I mostly want your Bryce Miller thoughts. Where does he shake out for you for today?
Miller looks really good. I don't have him projected quite as high as I expected to, at least relative to other guys. I right now at least have him behind Senga and Cortez, but that may change. Either way, I really like the spot for him. He's made 4 major league starts, made his major league debut against Oakland at $4,000, now faces them again at $10,100. The $4,000 price tag was a joke, so never should look into this like you're chasing his performances or anything. He's a highly regarded pitching prospect, has averaged over 95 miles an hour on his fastball this year. Through his first 4 starts, he struck out 25% of hitters, sub 2 FIP. Looked at his plate discipline stuff a little bit. His swinging strike percentage and his called plus swinging strike percentage haven't been great, but through his first 4 starts, his chase percentage, so pitches out of the strike zone the hitters are swinging at, if he had thrown enough innings to qualify, he would be sitting between Spencer Strider and Kevin Gossman right now in chase percentage on pitches out of the zone. So the stuff seems to be playing up between the fact that hitters are chasing it and they're striking out a good amount. You get a 3-run implied total for Oakland. He looks really, really good if you can get to that salary. And we did just get the Red Sox lineup. Ref Snyder leading off, Kike hitting 5th, Pablo Reyes hitting 6th. So they did get 4 righties into the top 6, 5 into the top 7, with Connor Wong hitting 7th. Jaron Duran is playing. He's batting 9th. So that does mean he can't pinch hit for Ref Snyder later, which is good. I'm not sure. Oh, Verdugo's not in though, so he can pinch hit for Ref Snyder later. So there's still definitely big pinch hit risk on Ref Snyder, potentially on Kike, but probably more so on Ref Snyder.
Okay. Do you have any interest in Waldichuk now that he's not starting? Or do you have it in general just because of the Mariners?
I didn't before, and I have less now.
Perfect. I know we're not talking Oakland bats, or at least I don't expect to. How much do you want to get to Seattle here?
So Seattle looks good. I don't think they look as good as when Waldichuk was starting. You're gonna get Austin Pruitt for an inning or two, whatever it is. He's probably going to be effective, and then you're going to get Waldichuk coming in, but it just limits the at-bats you're getting against Waldichuk. When you have Rodriguez hitting 2nd, you have Suarez hitting 3rd, so they're not going to see Ken Waldichuk in their first at-bat. That's a guarantee. Whether Teoscar Hernandez and Caballero and Pollock see him later on depends on how long the first inning is and exactly how many innings Pruitt goes, but you're not getting that matchup for Rodriguez and Suarez now in their first at bat, which sucks, but it is still a high upside spot. Not a good hitter's park, but overall a bad Oakland bullpen. Waldichuk isn't good. He's given up power to both sides of the plate. So don't sleep on Jared Kelenic. He's batting 4th, so his first at bat might be against the righty anyway. But either way, he's somebody that I expect to probably not get as much ownership just because he is relatively expensive at 4,600 and he is left-handed. So I expect people just to be prioritizing getting to Rodriguez, Suarez, Raleigh, Hernandez, Caballero, Pollock, maybe some Crawford because he's cheap and leading off. Kelenic seems like the logical guy to sort of just say, I'll sacrifice some salary there and, go to a cheaper, Pollock or Hernandez further down the order. So in tournaments, I do like the idea of keeping Kelenic in your stack.
Are you putting Miller before the Mariners bats or Mariners bats first?
Miller 1, Mariners 2. Not interested in anything from Oakland, but I guess Oakland bats 3, Waldichuk 4.
Anything else you want to touch on for this slate before we get out of here and turn it over to Live Before Lock?
That flew, but no.
It did fly. We're good at this, man. I'm just fantastic at getting you from point A to point B. It's incredible. Guys, hit that like button if you haven't done it already. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. Go nowhere. Stay right on this stream. Boys are going to take you all the way up until lock. Don't forget PGA Live Before Lock tonight. Thanks to Prize Picks. We're out of here. Peace.
Yo, it's that time of the week again. Time to induct some of you fine people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Give out some free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and all you got to do to get your name on the board, to get that free month, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. It's easy. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, got a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. More importantly, you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Crowning achievement, a moment of a lifetime. And hopefully we'll see you here for it next week. But we got some great ones this week. Kicking it off with Johnsy 2000. Just want to thank the Stochastic team. He lists a bunch of names, not going to do all of that, but finished third in the $20 NBA shoot around. 1000x my $20 buy-in for $20K. One lineup. Finally have money to buy some super chats. And Neil, where do you buy your flannel shirts? I need some. Congrats, man. Huge win there. Single bullet. Amazing stuff. LX Foley. Huge win last night using the lineup generator data. You guys know it. It's less than $4.50 for your first week. Baseball and basketball. Want to get in on that? Congrats, LX Foley. $15,000. Second place in the 300K Monday NBA clutch shot. 2 big wins out of the gate. Followed up by Ben Snapping. Appreciate y'all, boys. Sorry for the y'all, Lafayette. I'll never be comfortable with that word, but that's all right, man. You can say whatever you want. It's your day. I know you're going to be the one reading this in the morning. Holler at me. Yeah, $37.50 right there for Jet Life to the next life in NBA tiers. We got a lot of tiers questions lately. Been snapping, put up a big one. First place, almost $4,000. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, fella. And the 20K Thursday NBA pick and roll third place goes to JDJ 764, $750. Third place out of almost 11,000. Shout out to JDJ. Easy for me to say. And how about AG? You guys got some names here. AG 1216, bunch of robots, or Gomes 16, Go MH 16. I don't know. Anyway, he took third place on 23,781 entries, won $250 on 50 cents. Looks like a whole lot more than that as well, man. First place in the pickoff, first place in the elbow shot, second place in chin music, third place in the mini max. Huge night, man. Congratulations. Crash Money back again. When $5 becomes $2.50, you got to thank the whole Stochastic crew and Steve Buzzard, the Colts, for the office hours help. Yep, that's right. You get these free months, you're getting into the office hours. Steve's in there helping you guys refine your game. Who better than Steve to help you out? Best crew in projections in DFS. I could get used to this winning thing. Josh Prop, very simple man, at Stochastic HOF, $175. Second place in the 5K mini max. And remember, it doesn't matter how much the entry fee is, whether it's $20, $5, or 5 cents. As long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you're getting up here and you're getting the free month as well. Just like Josh, and just like, is it BLK, sir? Black Sir 89? Either way, shout out to the whole team. I'm always watching and using the tools at stochastic.com and loving the results. Got a nice little ROI and the free month. I'll take it. Yeah, man, that's how it works. Like I said, third place in the wiffle ball, 150 max as well. And we'll round it out with Michael Thomas. Hit on my placeholder lineup. Always remember to keep that one in the game. But gosh darn it, leave more than a nickel and a quarter on it. How long until I can get that free month again, boys? I don't know. That's not for me to say. We'll have to go back and look. But congratulations, everyone. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. Welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, just rock that avatar wherever it is you play and tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF to get in on the action. And we'll see you back here for the next one.
Positive energy. I like
appreciate that always.
Yeah, it's not the energy it usually brings. Usually it's big your energy, but I like the positivity today.
I kind of prefer the middle fingers.
Yeah, me too. What's happening, everybody? It is time for MLB Live Before Lock. There's no NBA Live Before Lock because there's no NBA game. So not doing an NBA show. Instead, we've got MLB with the MLB Deep Dive. We're doing MLB Live Before Lock, and I'm happy breaking down MLB today. We're sponsored by Prize Picks. We're going to be going over the top pitchers, the top stacks. We'll be answering any questions you guys have. If you have super chats, leave those in. If you're in Discord, one of our premium platinum members, at me in Discord, we can answer those questions that you guys have as we go here. And if you guys could also be so kind, do us a favor by liking the video, subscribing to the YouTube channel. Neil, you are filling in for Eric. It seems like Eric's having some family issues. So as much as I would like to throw some shade at him, I'm not going to. I hope everything is okay. In any other circumstance, I've been making fun of him, but hopefully everything's okay with Eric and he will be back here tomorrow. But Neil, what's going on with you?
Yeah, my wife is coming home from her work trip today, so Going to see her in a few hours. My dog just puked like half an hour ago. So I thought we were going to make it through a work trip for my wife without my dog puking. Was not the case. He just puked all over the couch.
Nice.
But I'm here now doing an MLB show that I told people during the morning strategy show. I was like, this is my only show today. I'm off for the rest of the day. It's beautiful. But I'm happy to be here too. If I'm going to be working, this is the kind of job I'd like to be doing.
How's that cleanup? Because that's not in my wheelhouse, being able to clean up animal vomit.
Yeah. Can you guess what I did, Greg?
Cleaned it up and threw up yourself?
I grabbed a warm paper towel and I just grabbed the puke. And it looked like it was probably clean, and that was it. I don't know what else to do. Like there's probably some kind of cleaner somewhere that my wife would use. Like she would probably have some like fancy things that she would do. I don't know, tonic water or some shit like that. But yeah, I just used water with the paper towel.
So I'm, fairly obsessed with your hygiene and your cleanliness. There's no soap or anything involved. Just your couch now is like dog vomit on. It's like, hey, warm water that cleans it.
I got it really quickly. So I think that it's probably good. It was also like fairly solid as far as vomit goes, so I'm not all that worried about it.
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I would handle that situation. I personally would take a gigantic shower towel. I would wipe it off. The towel's going in the garbage, and then I'm also getting a new couch. That's how I would handle that situation if it was me. So a little bit different. You're like a little bit warm water, and we're good to go. Yeah, not me at all. That is not how I'd be handling that kind of situation. And yeah, now you've got a couch that is forever in my mind a dog vomit couch.
We'll just have to see if my wife notices. Like that will be like, she might come be like, what the hell happened here? But it looked like it was going to clean up just fine. So I think it's okay.
All right, we shall see. Well, we shall see if that's the case. I have my doubts. By the way, we're sponsored by Prize Picks today, and if you guys have not signed up at Prize Picks, here's a couple reasons to do it. First of all, you sign up using our link. You're going to get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. But in addition to that, you also get 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. So a lot of good value. We've got projections tools for pretty much every single DFS sport out there. And you guys probably want access to more sports, especially in these days. NBA's wrapping up. It's not only going to get MLB, but you're going to get stuff like MMA, PGA, and all kinds of niche sports. There's, esports, which I don't know shit about, but we got projections for those up on the site. So if you guys want to expand the DFS sports you play, just sign up at Prize Picks using our link, because you're going to get tools, projections, ownership projections for pretty much every single DFS sport out there that you could think of. And let's start to get into the slate a little bit here, Neil. And before we get, do you have any just overarching thoughts, any big picture things that are standing out to you about this slate before we get into it? And don't have to. If not, that's totally acceptable as well.
I mean, it's a Coors slate. Coors slates are always different from any other slate. And it's a Coors slate where we have a team, the Marlins, playing against a terrible pitcher. So it's like, it's a little bit interesting in that I kind of just want to slam the Marlins. I've been slamming the Marlins, hasn't really been working out. So maybe I should be getting away from it. But man, the Marlins against Carl Kaufman just looks like, in Coors in particular, it's a different kind of slate in that we do have one team that stands out above the rest, even on a large slate. Probably would be smart to get away from them, but they're only getting 12% ownership. So I think I'm just jamming the Marlins. Yeah, other than that, I saw the super chat, had not realized that Ken Waldichuk is no longer starting. Kind of interesting. I guess we can answer that super chat whenever you're ready to. But yeah, that's my only overarching thought is, yeah, it's a Marlins slate, it's a Coors slate, which is always different than any other slate.
Yeah, so I could tell you on my initial runs, I have the most exposure to the Marlins of any team by a lot. Now, with that said, that could change in a little bit, and for a very odd reason, which is Jonathan Davis was not in our ownership projections yet, and that could change our ownership projections on the team once it gets up. I don't think it's going to have a massive impact, but we'll see how that has any kind of impact in terms of the amount that I get to them. But I do assume that the Marlins are going to be the team that I end up with the most amount of ownership to as we get closer to lock here. We are just waiting on the Oakland A's starting lineup, and then also the other part of this where you were talking about Ken Waldichuk. So Waldichuk is still going to pitch today, but he is expected to just come out of the bullpen. He's not going to be starting. So like a long reliever. I don't really think this changes too much about how we should view him on this slate. Maybe there's a little bit more risk because there's a scenario where maybe it just means he doesn't go as deep into the game. But I expect Pruitt to pitch the first inning, maybe 2 innings, and then Waldichuk just is basically pitching the innings he normally would have, but he's starting against the middle and the tail end of the order instead of the top of it. So you can make a case that it benefits him in that kind of way, but ultimately it doesn't really make that big of an impact in how I view him. Let me see what that super chat is because YouTube chat just closed on me. Do you have it in front of you, by the way, that super chat?
Yes, I do. Let me pull it up. All right. So Hutchboy 180 asks, can you discuss Waldichuk not starting and potential impact on his projection? Asking for a friend looking to pound the hanging line still up on Bet Rivers.
I think it is pretty close to no impact on the game, right? In general, I think this is a good practice by teams, especially with a starter who's not, your top of the rotation. He's not your Jacob deGrom. He's not your Clayton Kershaw type pitcher. I think a lot of teams should use a reliever that's just going to be better than the starter to face the top of the order for the first inning. Now, for FanDuel purposes, if anybody's playing on FanDuel, disaster, right? Because now you're limiting your ability to get the quality start out of him. It definitely hurts his upside there. Ultimately, though, I don't think it has that much of an impact on the game, and I don't think it really impacts Waldichuk either. He's somebody who is going to pop up in a couple of my lineups here or there, but he's no kind of real priority, and that's still going to be the case now that he's coming out of the bullpen, right? So
I see his follow-up, so I wanted to he says, I'm on the Waldichuk under anyway. Thanks, guys. So I don't know, what are you talking about, a strikeout under like that?
Yeah.
I do think that it would make it, actually, I don't know. I was going to say it probably makes it less likely to hit, but he will be facing worse batters to start.
So here's what's going to happen, Hutch Boy. It's going to get voided. The way that those bets work at basically every single sports book is the pitcher has to start for action. So your bet's going to get voided, and not really too much else to add to it. It's going to, and even though they still have the line up, just check what the terms are there, because I'm like 99% sure that it's going to say player must start for action.
I know Hutchboy is also up like $2,000 on Prize Picks over the past week or two, like just absolutely crushing Prize Picks. So congrats on that.
Not Prize Picks, but just sports books. So
is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So Hutchboy has been really active in our Chalkboard channel, which it's totally free to download Chalkboard, by the way. Lofty and I post some additional bets in there. We hang out, sweat some bets, answer questions, totally free. So if you guys are interested in that, no reason to not join. You just download it and then decide you don't really like it that much and not pay attention. But it is free to download. And Hutchboy is one of the most active people we have in there. But yeah, Hutchboy had sent us a screenshot last week and just been killing the game using the tools that we have at Odd Shopper, Bet Pro, and yeah, made a couple $1,000s last week just by tailing some of the bets we have in there. And yeah, we talk about them in our Chalkboard channel. By the way, we just got the starting lineup for the A's, and it is official that Pruitt is starting. But like I said, not really a massive impact on Waldichuk. If you're playing, 150 lineups like I am tonight, and you get to like 2 or 3% of them, cool. But he's not anybody that's like any kind of priority. This doesn't really change anything for him either on DraftKings. I wouldn't play him on FanDuel, but wouldn't have played him on FanDuel anyway.
Yeah, I'm not playing any Waldichuk.
There we go. No Waldichuk for you either. Now let's go and talk about the pitchers that we actually do like for today, Neil. And we've got 3 pitchers that are projected to pick up a significant amount of ownership today. So starting with the DraftKings ownership, we've got Senga projected for 39% ownership. We've got Bryce Miller projected for 34% ownership. Nestor Cortez projected for 42% ownership. And then if you go over to FanDuel, the chalk is Senga at 26%, and then Nestor Cortez at 30%. A little harder to get up to Bryce Miller, is less popular on FanDuel because he's $10,900 there. But let's start by talking about the DraftKings options. When we're talking about the chalk, once again, that's Senga, Bryce Miller, Nestor Cortez. Do you have a preference of the 3 popular pitchers that we have on DK tonight?
Probably Senga. I mean, Senga has the highest top 2 pitcher odds at 29%. He's cheaper than Miller. He's cheaper than, I guess he's more expensive than Cortez, yes, but he's getting less ownership than Cortez with higher top 2 pitcher odds. Cortez scares me against Baltimore. So I think that I would go with Senga, number 1 of the group, followed by probably actually in the order that we have them, Senga followed by Miller, followed by Cortez. How do you see it?
So for me, when I was running lineups before this, and it's going to change maybe slightly because we didn't have the A's line now it came out. I doubt it's going to have that much of an impact, but assuming my ownership all stays the same when I rerun my lineups, it was Senga 1, it was Cortez 2, Bryce Miller 3. Bryce Miller's a great prospect. He's one of the better young arms that we have in baseball. The only issue I have here is just the price point on him. He's $10,100. It's a fairly steep salary. So, if you're playing cash games, my preference is just to play Senga and Cortez. All 3 of them, I think, are good options. They're going to be 3 of my most rostered pitchers on the slate. But I do think that of the 3 of them, like I said, a little bit less of a priority on Bryce Miller. Not because I don't like him, not because I don't think the matchup is great. It clearly is against the Oakland A's. It's just he's $10,100 on DraftKings. And then even more so, this becomes an issue on FanDuel where he's $10,900. It's just a lot of salary to pay. And as for Nestor Cortes, I just like the salary savings that we're getting on him. He is super popular at 42%. But with that said, I was still fairly close to the field when I'm building out my lineups because you're getting him at $8,100. And the pitching for today, kind of trash, right? Like we've got these three pitchers who are projected to be really popular, and I think very rightfully so. Like you start to look at the other pitchers in the ownership, and then it's like Marcus Stroman is $8,600 against the Mets, project for 25% ownership. I don't love that spot. I think Stroman is way overowned, but it just goes to show how weak the pitching options are. So still, my primary focus is going to be on Senga. It's going to be on Miller. It's going to be on Cortes, with a little bit of a lean towards Senga and Cortes because of what their price points are. But with that in mind, I have to ask you, Marcus Stroman also picking up a whole bunch of ownership. Are you getting to him at 25% ownership at $8,600 in a not so easy matchup against the New York Mets?
I am actually getting to some Stroman. I'm actually above the field on Stroman right now, partially because I had to raise my pitcher cap because I was having issues with lineups being generated. But currently I have 43% Marcus Stroman. I would rather get to more of the other pitchers, I think, of the top three. But yeah, it scares me. Marcus Stroman against the Mets. What is the total for the Mets, actually? I wonder if it's, let me see that.
The Mets team total is 3.6.
I mean, it must be a good day for pitching in Wrigley. So I would imagine that is helping Stroman a bit here with his projection. Yeah, I'm getting there. You know, we do have negative leverage on Stroman. We've got him at 25% ownership with a 19% chance of being a top two pitcher. You often see, I mean, I guess all of the top four pitchers all have negative leverage. So I guess I'm willing to eat that. When the line is that low, it tells you something about the conditions of the game, especially when the line is that low against a team like the Mets. Tells you something about the conditions of the game. So yeah, I guess I'm happy to get to some Stroman here.
So to answer your question before, it is absolutely favorable pitching conditions. So pulling up the most recent weather we have here, it is fairly cool. So temperatures expect to be in the mid 50s at Wrigley Field and winds blowing in from center field around 25 miles per hour. So it's definitely favorable pitching conditions, but I don't know that means that I want to play like a chalky Marcus Stroman at $8,600 who doesn't have the most strikeout upside in the world. Let's see. What did I have in the last run of ownership? In the last run of lineups I did, I got to 10% of Marcus Stroman. So well under the field. And once the conditions are good for pitching, but it's like, is it enough for me to want to pay $8,600 for a chalky Marcus Stroman? If he wasn't chalky, I'd feel differently about it. It's the ownership that kind of changes the equation for me and has me coming in underweight to the field on him. But that's really most of the chalk at pitcher. The only guy that's picking up double-digit ownership outside of those pitchers we talked about is Sandy Alcantara. We've got Sandy projected for 9% ownership on FanDuel, 15% on DK. So we only have 5 pitchers on the entire slate with double-digit ownership. Tricky spot here with Alcantara, right? Because he won the Cy Young last year. He was clearly superb, right? He was one of the best pitchers in baseball, hence the Cy Young award, but he hasn't been nearly as good this year. The other side of this is that he's priced down a little bit. He's on the road, but at Coors Field. So what are you going to do with a pitcher who's not quite living up to expectations, but is priced down, has a lot of talent, is at Coors Field?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it looks like a good enough spot for Alcantara at 8,300. Like, obviously, he's pitching in Coors, which you hate, but he's pitching against the Rockies. So, like, not a great lineup that he's facing. If you're going to face a team in Coors, might as well be the Rockies, probably one of the better places, one of the better teams you'd like to face, one of the better lineups. But you know, I want to see what I'm actually getting to here. Yeah, I'm not getting to any Alcantara, but I think that it is a good spot. Like, I wouldn't be mad if I did get to a little bit of Alcantara here because he is facing the Rockies and he is a good pitcher. So wouldn't take him out of my lineup if I got to some.
Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of him, but also a guy that I'm not going to be prioritizing in any kind of real way. A lot of it is just because he's pitching at Coors Field, and there are spots where I'll be getting to Coors Field pitchers, but there's already ownership going to him. Here's the spot where I like a pitcher potentially at Coors. A pitcher with strikeout upside, and then also has to be low owned, which Alcantara is not today. He's the 5th most popular pitcher on the slate. And then also he has to be facing a team that's chalky, right? You put all of those things together, And that's when you have a pitcher who has upside, low owned, you're getting leverage on him going up against an opposing offense that isn't all that popular. We just don't have that with Alcantara today. So someone's making a bunch of lineups and you had like a couple of them here or there. I don't think it's the end of the world, but certainly not a priority play. And another guy that, at least as of now, I like coming in underweight to the field on. So that covers the popular pitchers, Neil. Is there anybody that stands out to you from a contrarian point of view as a pitching option today?
I mean, Bryce Elder's got the talent. You hate the matchup with the Dodgers. It's very scary. He's got the 9,600 price tag and facing the Dodgers. It is scary as hell, but 3% projected ownership with a 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher is sort of interesting to me for Bryce Elder. I guess you could make a similar case for Tyler Wells coming in at 5% ownership with a 15% chance of being a top pitcher. I'd probably rather go to Bryce Elder there just for the ownership discount, but I think they're fairly similar there. I mean, depending on where you draw the line for contrarian, James Paxton kind of interesting at.
By the way, I'm going to say anybody who isn't the pitchers we already talked about is contrarian because everybody else is single digit on. So the only pitchers that I'm considering chalky on DraftKings: Senga, Miller, Cortez, Stroman, Alcantara. The next most popular pitcher is James Paxton, 8.6%. So everything else is contrarian to me outside of those 5 guys.
Okay, then yeah, James Paxton would qualify for me as somebody that I have some interest in. Tough spot. He's in LA. It's a hitter's park these days. He's 8,900. Interesting price tag. He looks pretty good in the top pitchers tool. I could consider James Paxton. I think I'm mostly just playing like the chalkier pitchers. And yeah, I guess I have one share of Matt Boyd. I don't love it. I'm not like excited to play Matt Boyd, but I also, it's not the end of the world to get there. The price tag is reasonable for Matt Boyd. 7,400 at Kansas City is okay. So I don't hate that as a contrarian place. Getting 5% ownership, 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 14% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. So yeah, I don't hate Matt Boyd there either. Yeah, I think that's it. Tyler Wells, Bryce Elder, Matt Boyd, James Paxton are the only other pitchers I would consider.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if there's anything crazy I'm getting to, but not really. To me, like I said, I'm kind of building around some of the popular pitchers. I've got other guys mixed in, but nothing that's really all that crazy differentiated from the field. My big stand on the slate when I'm building my lineups, it's just going to be way overweight to the field on a Miami Marlins team that, at least as of right now, is not projected, in my opinion, for an appropriate amount of ownership. And they're somewhat contrarian relative to how we're projecting them. So that's the team that I'm going to like getting to. I'm going to be taking a stand and going overweight to the Marlins. That's how I'm going to be differentiating. Pitcher, not really, right? There's nothing else. Is there any pitchers that you see the ownership on you aggressively don't like in any kind of way?
I do want to throw one more out. Zach Greinke is interesting to me just because of the tools. I see Steve Miner. I was going to mention when I see Steve Miner says Greinke still has a 2.3 ERA at Kauffman over the last 2 years and a monstrous 5.4 strikeouts per night. Monstrous for Greinke. But seriously, he's coming in at 3% ownership, 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 22% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. I guess you could make a case for, and he's facing Detroit, obviously, so that kind of helps. So you can certainly make a case for Greinke. Anybody that I'm aggressively fading? No, I don't really think there is for me. I mean, I don't have any Alcantara currently, but I also don't hate it. So yeah, nobody who's getting ownership that I'm aggressively fading. How about you?
No, not really. I mean, looking at my lineups, you brought up Zach Greinke. I have 5% of Greinke at 3% ownership. So make of that what you will, but I don't really think that's anything, any kind of stand or anything of all that much interest. So no real strong pitcher takes for me. I can tell you the pitcher who I hate the most on the slate because he's been somebody I've been on the wrong side of a bunch this last couple of weeks, Tyler Wells, who I just do not think is particularly good, but he keeps having these starts that are good when either I'm stacking against him or I feel like he's overrun. The one that stands out the most to me, and by the way, all the only point of this here is that I don't like Tyler Wells as a person. I feel like he's done me wrong. So Tyler Wells, we had this slate against the Pittsburgh Pirates a couple weeks ago where he's like 35% owned. And Tyler Wells is not particularly good. He's got a decent ERA this year. The underlying numbers tell a different story, though. Tyler Wells is a 2.94 ERA, but a 4.64 FIP. Doesn't strike out a lot of guys. So I'm thinking, like, there's no way he keeps this up. Has a start against the Pirates, like 35% ownership. has the best start of his career, totally crushes. I had 0% exposure to him on that slate, and I've hated him ever since. So I hope he gets hit really hard today, even though it's not going to have like a massive impact on my night. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Who would you rather fight, Tyler Wells or Jimmy Butler?
Well, Jimmy.
Okay. I
Tyler
figured that
Wells
was
did me wrong on
the
this
case.
slate.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not personal.
He's not
Not
ducking you
personal.
like Jimmy.
Are the Celtics going to come back to win that series, by the way?
I mean, it's still unlikely. That is we talked about last night. That was kind of my prediction, is that they would win that game, make it a series. That was the likeliest outcome. Yeah, they actually going to come back and win? Like
they're 8-point favorites tomorrow.
Yeah, but
they're going to be significant.
They were favorites in every game and getting crushed. Yeah. You think they will even in Miami?
They'll be the same as like game. So here's what happened. The Celtics in game 1, big favorites against the Heat. Celtics big favorites against the Heat, lose. Game 2, big favorites against the Heat, lose. Game 3, the market is still on Boston. Game 3, Boston off the top of my head, 3.5-point favorites in Miami. They lose the game. The market goes, fuck this team. We're giving up on them. The Heat get priced as 1.5-point favorites in game 4. The Celtics win in a blowout. So now the market goes, we were right to begin with. Celtics back to being big favorites at home against the Heat. And so now it's just kind of corrected itself. So what I assume will happen, we're going to have Boston as an 8, maybe an 8.5-point favorite tomorrow. Then you're going to get to, if they win that game, game 6 in Miami, they're going to go right back to being 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because at that point, they would have won the last 2 games. The market's going to be like, oh yeah, this team was legit. They figured it out. So do I think they win the series? No, I don't think that they win the series. I do think it would be funniest also if the Heat win the next game after all the Boston guys came out and said, don't let us win one game. And then if the Heat just win the next game, that'd be the funniest.
So that's funny. To me, the absolute funniest scenario is the Celtics win the next 3 games, force a game 7. At that point, they're like 10-point favorites at home in game 7, and then they lose by 40 or something like that. That would be
funny too.
That would be like, in terms of how people would react on Twitter, because at that point, people are going to have totally turned on the Miami Heat, saying that they were really fraud. Look at you, fancy with your wine. Don't spill that on the couch.
I never would. I mean, I know how to take care of it though. You just got to get a paper towel and a little bit of warm water.
But that's the actual funniest scenario, especially because of how many people, probably myself included, are going to have bad takes on both sides of the series at that point.
Sure.
Because you're going to have people who wrote off the Celtics are going to write off the Heat going into game 7. They'll be wrong on both sides. That's kind of hilarious.
That is kind of hilarious. Stephen Lewis does not think so. He says he's hitting the thumbs down for us talking shit about. I think he's a big Celtics fan. Is that right?
Yes, he is I assume, I don't actually know, but I assume so based on that.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
I assume so. Jordan, let's go and build. So we've got all the lineups in for today. Let's build some lineups in the MLB lineup generator. And I think that'll be a good way to, number one, highlight some of the tools we have over at Stochastic, our newest tool, the MLB lineup generator, but also just kind of give us an idea of what it is that our tool's like. I have a feeling, especially for DraftKings, it's going to be the Miami Marlins.
Yep.
So let me...
Especially if we do anything other than contrarian lineups.
Even contrarian lineups, I think, are going to end up liking the Marlins.
Possibly, yeah.
We'll see, though. Let's start with DraftKings, and we'll do FanDuel afterwards. By the way, if you guys want to sign up for our MLB lineup generator, this is the absolute easiest way for you to build DFS lineups and make some money. Because especially if you're somebody who's in a pinch, maybe you don't know MLB all that well, you're just getting started. This is going to do it for you. You're just clicking a couple of buttons, and then we're going to generate plus EV lineups for you. Up to 20 of them. You can export them right to DraftKings and FanDuel right from this page. So we're starting with DraftKings. Just do all stack types for this right now, Jordan. All stack types. Let's go contrarian. I'm curious to see what it does with the Marlins. Yep, don't lock anybody in. Build some lineups out. See what ends up coming up. All right,
Brian,
so some exposures. Yeah, like I said, still a shit ton of the Marlins here. De La Cruz, we got a bunch of Senga at pitcher. We actually got, I'm surprised how much Stroman we got to in building contrarian lineups. Oh, fuck, Tyler Wells. Oh, fuck no. But, I mean, he's in there. I don't like him as a person.
We're going contrarian here, so you
but
gotta...
yeah, we are going contrarian. I mean, I hope something bad happens to him, but yeah, all right. So we got some of him, but still, as you can see, really heavily just towards the Marlins. And by the way, even if we both chalky lines, I still think we'd end up getting to the Marlins. Our projections are so high on Miami today. It's hard for me to get away from them. So Marlins definitely a team that I am going to be interested in. Anything else that stands out to you about these DK lineups, Neil?
I suppose it's worth noting that the Marlins, we only projected them for 12% stack ownership on the Marlins too. So it's not like they're getting a ton of ownership. So it makes sense. We're still getting there a lot. What am I noticing here? I mean, still like we're getting, what are we, this lineup number one, 154% ownership. So like, that's not like extremely contrarian, but it's all relative, and you still need lineups that are going to project well enough, have a good enough shot of winning. A lot of these ones have much lower ownership. I just saw one, I think that said 102% ownership. That's extremely contrarian. So this is kind of a mix of like closer to balanced, I would say, like on the balanced side of contrarian to like very contrarian at those, closer to 100%. That's kind of interesting.
What's the Jordan, what was the one that was 100% on the lowest owned lineup? Oh, that's Tyler Wells. So Tyler Wells, Matt Boyd, and then it is a 5-man Marlins stack, it looks like. Yeah, Arise, Birdie, De La Cruz, or was it 4 and 4? I'm bad at counting sometimes.
I didn't count it, and I can't see the whole lineup. So
yeah, that also makes it hard to count that I can't see all the players right there. Yeah, so it was a lineup with four Mariners in there and 4 Marlins hitters. So either way, though, I think that's all good lineups there. And once again, I think that if you guys are playing DFS, trying to dip your toes into the water of MLB, this is the easiest way to go about building some of your lineups. Now let's go and build out some FanDuel lineups to see what looks different about FanDuel as compared to DraftKings. One thing that is immediately going to stand out with FanDuel just in general is that the Marlins are more expensive. So therefore it's going to be, a little bit different in terms of what we're looking at there. Look at Jordan Klein navigating this. A lot of pressure on him. See how he handles it. Pressing all those buttons.
He does well under cover, under pressure.
You play golf at all, Neil?
I have played golf. Like I play probably once every 6 years.
Okay. So when I play golf with my dad, and also I've not played golf in a very long time, but when I play with my dad, if we're like it's only the two of us and there's a foursome in front of us, so we're going a lot faster and the group in front of us lets us play through, my dad panics under pressure with people watching him and hits a bad shot every single time. So just wondering if that would happen with Jordan right there when he was trying to navigate the site. People are watching him. He's sharing his screen. Does he accidentally click along a wrong button? Does he pull porn up on the screen? What was he going to do? What was a potential misstep that Jordan Klein would take? But he handled it like a pro.
He's been doing this a while. You gain composure with experience.
All stack types. Let's go all stack types, Jordan. And let's go contrarian again. Save some, discard some, see what pops up.
So all right. 80% Senga in contrarian lineups is interesting to me.
And by the way, I thought we were going to be getting to less of the Marlins. Well, fuck me. That was not the case. We got to all of the Marlins still, even on FanDuel at the more expensive price point. So, and by the way, it's not like they're that expensive, but still they're a little bit more expensive on FanDuel relative to DraftKings. But either way, we're getting to a whole bunch of Marlins there. Something to keep an eye on. A ton of Senga, 9,600. He is, like you mentioned before, Neil, he is the pitcher that we've projected the best in our top pitchers tool by a fairly wide margin. So getting to a bunch there. Who are the other pitchers we got to, if you don't mind scrolling down, Jordan? Let's see. Other pitchers, Tyler Wells. Boy, now it's just trolling me, the lineup generator, is it not?
Is this Jordan choking now? Is this
yeah, now he's just highlighting everything. I gave him all that praise, and now he's
can't handle it. Too much praise.
Yeah, nuke. All right, Nestor Cortez, 8,300. So yeah, we ended up still getting to predominantly Senga as our top pitcher there, and I'm not going to be playing like 90% of Senga like coming up here, but him and Nestor Cortez, like I said before, are going to be my 2 most rostered pitchers for the entire slate. So any other questions you guys have, let us know. I'm going to check our Discord.
I like this question from Mark Smith. Yes, Greg and Neil, I'm using lineup generator for DraftKings in a field of a few thousand people. What ownership percentage do you like your lineups to be? Ballpark? It's really tough. Like it's not something that I have looked at all that closely, like some ownership in the past. I feel like it's probably anything lower than like 165% tonight is kind of based on the lineups we've seen.
I don't have a variety. Every slate is so different.
Yeah,
That
it's really
to me, I
tough
feel like
question.
if I answer this and give you a number, it's going to be a mistake because then you're going to think that's the number it should be when that's not really in fact what it should be. It's just going to be so different slate to slate. And then you're going to have some slates where there's chalk, but you like the chalk. There's going to be slates for the chalk and you dislike the chalk. So it's hard to say. There's not a one size fits all answer. I understand where he's coming from. It's not an invalid question, but you're going to get this slate where, like, for NBA, for instance, people ask this question all the time. It's like, well, if you get a min price player who's like a can't miss that's projected for 35 fantasy points, you're going to want to get overweight to the field on him anyway. And that's going to drastically change what some of the ownership looks like. Same for this. A 3-game baseball slate is going to be so much different than a 10-game baseball slate, which is going to be different than a 13-game baseball slate. And then also, what happens if Jacob deGrom is pitching and he's like $8,500? So there's not a one size fits all answer. I wish there was, but one of the things that makes DFS interesting and unique is that there isn't. Do you have any other way to answer that?
No, I think that was a really good answer. My answer, the number I gave is solely based on what I'm seeing in lineup generator, because we had, like, looking at the balanced lineups earlier, I noticed like it was a really thin band when Adam and I were looking at the balanced lineups earlier. It was like between 150 and 165 about, and now the contrarian lineups, kind of come up about to 155 as well. So I kind of think that's where we're getting like contrarian to balance on this slate in particular, but it does change slate to slate, of course. Also, I see we've had like 4 different people asking us to do tiers, Greg. It is once again the thing that people are clamoring for in YouTube chat, for what it's worth.
All right. Well, let's go and look at some tiers then. And I don't have tiers lineups built out in front of me, but we can definitely go and look at tiers and see what stands out in the different ones.
I have tier one, Acuna, Judge, Trout, or Ohtani. For me, I think it would probably be Trout, just because of he's the only one facing an opposite-handed pitcher here. You can make an argument for a Judge against Wells, I think.
So let me just run lineups right here, and this will take like 5 seconds using our projections. And then I'm going to be curious a couple things. Number one, which players we get to the most, and then how do they potentially correlate with other players that also project well in other tiers. So I'm going to run those lineups through and see what ends up popping up. Surprise, surprise. Just a shit ton of Marlins. So the number one thing that stands out here is you can make Marlin stacks, like mini Marlin stacks in here anyway. Because you have in tier 3, there's Luis Ariz and Jorge Soler. In tier 5, there's Garrett Cooper. In tier 6, there's John Birdie. So build a 3-man Marlin stack based on that. Right? Tier 2,
like that.
Tier 5, tier 6. Go ahead and build a Marlin stack. Let's see. So then tier 1, we have Acuna, Judge, Ohtani, Trout. Tier 2,
3, 5, 6 have the.
So there's no real way to be able to stack the other tiers in any kind of real significant way. So tier 1, I got to Acuna the most. Tier 2, I got to Tatis the most. Tier 3, I'll say Jorge Soler. Tier 5, Cooper. Tier 6, Birdie. And then tier 4, anything stand out to you in tier 4? We got Olsen, Muncy, Bryant, Elias Diaz.
Not really any great matchups here, so I guess I would probably take Muncy with the lefty on righty.
Okay.
Nobody's standing out to me.
Yeah, I got to Olsen the most, but it's not any kind of,
that's another lefty on righty in the 2 hole instead of the 4. Yeah, I'd probably go Olsen over Muncy, actually.
Yeah, no real significant stand, but that is what I got to the most there. And all right. Rerunning lineups again, and now we've got all the ownership projections, and there was like a weird issue with Jonathan Davis because there was like a back end issue where he was still being tagged as part of the Royals, and now he's on the Marlins. 2 teams that nobody really gives a shit about, but it ends up mattering on a Coors Field slate. So rerunning lineups now that we have Davis project for 4% ownership. That's actually going to make a little bit of a difference in terms of what my lineups look like. But let's go ahead and look at the stacks, Neil. And I want to know, we've got all of this positive leverage projected to go to the Miami Marlins. Are you going to be as bullish on them as our projections are?
Yes, I'm extremely bullish on the Marlins. I'm going way over the field on the Marlins. Mixing up my stacks a little bit. I'm getting to a little bit of every batter on the Marlins, other than I don't have any Davis right now, probably because of the error in the tool is probably the only reason I didn't get
And
any.
it's all updated now, by the way.
Yeah, maybe I'll rerun it, but I think that I'm getting to every other bat on the Marlins, and most of them in pretty good numbers. So yeah, I'm bullish on the Marlins tonight.
Yeah, let me see. What did I have? There we go. Yep, getting to some of Jonathan Davis. So got my lineups crunching here. We'll see what ends up popping up. And the most recent top stack odds, I want to read this off for DraftKings and then for FanDuel as well, because I think this is going to really tell a story of why it is that we like getting into the Marlins. And this isn't, by the way, a team that we're not going to tell you they're projected for 2 or 3% ownership or anything like that. But even with some ownership going to them, our data suggests it's not nearly enough, because we have the Marlins projected for 12.6% ownership, but that is with them projected with an 18.7% chance to be the top scoring team over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, we have the Marlins projected for 15.3% ownership, so more there, but still a 17.9% chance to be the top scoring team. So this is still a team, even despite some of the ownership going there, it is not enough based on the data we have here over at Stokastic.com. As you're running your lineups, Neil, are there any Marlins hitters that you're getting to more frequently than the other ones?
Yeah, so one thing that I just noticed that I'm adjusting is I wasn't getting to any Garrett Cooper in the 4 hole. And I think that's because you can only play one first baseman on DraftKings. And I was getting to a lot more Yulieski Gurriel because he's 3,000 in the 6 hole versus Garrett Cooper in the 4 hole. I think that might be a mistake though. So I think that I'm actually going to adjust that. But yeah, I'm getting to my cap on hitters. I set a cap. I'm getting to my cap on Birdie, Arraez, Wendell, and De La Cruz.
By the way, the Orioles-Yankees game will be delayed because of rain. Want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Let me check the weather report. Is this something that we need to be massively concerned about? All right, the weather. So this game taking place in New York, I could tell you right outside my window. It is fairly dark outside. I live fairly close to New York City. There's a train station within walking distance of my house, and it takes like 45 minutes to get into New York. Let's see what the weather report shows. Pull up the old weather app on my phone. Chance of light rain, but it doesn't look like this is going to be an issue throughout the night. So I'm not going to be changing any of my exposures to Nestor Cortes, the Yankees, or anything based on this news. Are you pulling the panic button, Neil? Are you boarding ship to avoid any kind of risk, or are you under the assumption that the game is going to play and no real issues?
Yeah, I'm working under the assumption that the game is going to play. It can be. We're expecting showers before they're probably going to wait it out until the showers are done. Like normally this is like when the weather's just a little bit bad. My bigger concern would be with the pitchers, but it seems like they're just going to wait out the rain, so it won't be an issue. So I'm not planning around it today.
My hope, and maybe this is just a pipe dream, is that this lowers the ownership on Nestor Cortes.
Yeah.
What do you think? By the way, possible. I think we should do you think this could lower his ownership at all?
For sure. I mean, a little bit at least. Like I think most people are, have an idea of the risk here at this point. So like I don't think it's going to drop it drastically, but I think that it's at least going to lower it a little bit, especially because we already are getting notifications telling us that it's going to be delayed. Like there are going to be some people who are just going to say, all right, I'm going to X out that game if it's delayed. I'm sure there are some people who just like automatically, if a game is delayed, exit out, because it is clearly, added risk there. So yeah, I would imagine we get some lower ownership.
And then what would be the trickle down effect? Is that going to impact any other players in any kind of significant way?
Very good question. Probably. I mean, it would have to some extent. Let's see. So we've got Cortes is at 8,100. Maybe a little bit more goes to Alcantara. Like if people have that extra 200 in salary, they could just move up to Alcantara. Probably still not a ton. Not a lot of people are going to want to go to Alcantara in Coors. I'm trying to see if there's any like obvious pivot below 7,100, and I'm not really seeing anybody. So I don't think it's going to be the case that like anybody gets major steam as a result. I also don't think it's going to drastically reduce Cortes' ownership. I think it'll be like a slight dip. Maybe he gets under that 40% number, but I think he's still going to get plenty of ownership.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking through this and I think people will still play Nestor Cortes. Like to me, it's just a pipe dream. It's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if less people played Nestor Cortes? But it's not something I actually think is going to happen. It's just something I would like to happen, but probably not going to end up being the case here. I'm just doing a final run of my lineups, but I don't think I'm really going to change too much at this point, just making sure I've got everything updated in here. But let's talk about outside of the Miami Marlins, getting back to the stacks, Neil. This is clearly the team that you and I have the most focus on. We have the most interest in the Miami Marlins. Is there any team you're eyeing as being overowned that you want to be underweight to the field to?
I'm only playing, I think, 3 teams today. So
Okay.
every other team I think is overowned. No, let's see. I mean, not really. Like I'm getting to all of the chalky teams here to some extent in my primary stacks. And outside of the chalky teams, like, not really to any real extent. I'm going to be underweight to the field on the Braves, but it scares me. There's nobody who's getting a ton of ownership that I'm just like, this is terrible ownership. So I can't really say that there's anybody that I'm terribly like. Maybe Washington to an extent. We've got them at 7.4% ownership, 5.4% chance to be in the top stack, 15.4% chance to be in the top value stack. I think it's unlikely that they really like blow up the slate, but I guess the answer is no. Like there's no stack that I'm looking at and think that they're getting way crazy high ownership. Do you see anybody that you hate here?
Terms of hate, well, I've got lineups run right now, so I can tell you who I am aggressively or most underweight to. So some of the Mets and the Cubs, just based on the weather there,
Sure.
It is hard for me. Just started raining out here. By the way, also, because we have Larry C saying Greg is bragging that he's by the NJ Transit. I'm not bragging. I'm just stating as a matter of fact that I could look outside and I could see what the weather is because I'm close to New York. Being close to the NJ Transit, no brag whatsoever. I've seen horrific things on the NJ Transit, not as bad as the New York subway station, because the New York subway station, like if you want to see a homeless man take a shit and masturbate at the same time, the New York public transportation is the way to go. Yeah. So I'm not bragging about it, but it is something that you'll see, in the area if you live in this space. In fact, actually, if you haven't seen a homeless man expelling some kind of bodily fluid in public, you're not you don't live in you there's no way you could claim you live in the New York area.
No, absolutely not.
No way you can. Anyway, we got a super chat here from Ryan Rennebaum. And by the way, if I wasn't clear, just because of the weather, the Cubs and the Mets, those are my 2 least favorite stacks on the slate. Ryan Rennebaum, top 3 pitchers for FanDuel for 3 entry. Yeah. So I think that you should go with Senga, Nestor Cortez. Boy, Bryce Miller's really expensive, but I'm still going to say him. If you had to pick 3 separate pitchers, would those be the 3 you go with, or do you go with Stroman over Miller for the $1,000 in salary savings?
I'm going to go with Stroman over Cortez because for the ownership savings. I was, to be honest with you, I think I was about to say the exact same 3 that you just named, but I'm switching it up because you said those 3. I'm going to go with Stroman over Cortez because Stroman getting just 8.5% ownership, Cortez at 29.8. I get it. Cortez is 8,300, but Baltimore, that is a dangerous lineup. And you benefit from pitching longer into the game on FanDuel in particular. So I'll throw Cortez out of those top 4 on FanDuel.
Just checking through, seeing what some of my exposures ended up being. So yeah, getting to a bunch of Cortez, a bunch of Senga, and then a whole bunch of Marlins stacks, which is what I was expecting. No real crazy surprises in my lineup builds. Underweight to the field on Stroman, which is what I was expecting to end up happening. So yeah, everything is looking as expected in these lineups. Was there any other super chats? We got the one from Ryan Rennebaum.
Got Rinpack and Emac in chat. Good to see.
Oh, Emac 2024.
We don't get Rinpack very often in baseball chats.
No, we do not. Here we go. We got a question in Discord from D Fick. He wants to know, what do I contribute my high finish in the relay to yesterday? Not to the Angels fucking pinch hitting Moniak, I'll tell you that much. So yesterday, there's like 1 inning left in the baseball slate. I'm in 3rd in the $15. And I have a path to win. I need an extra base hit from Mickey Moniak, who's batting leadoff for the Angels, and he's due up in the next inning. So I'm pretty tired. I'm considering going to sleep, but I'm going to stay awake for this 1 at bat. So I have to sit through the other team batting at the top of the inning. Moniak comes up to the plate. They pinch hit him for Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward doubles and ends up scoring. Fairly tilting. Fairly tilting.
I would be quite. I've been in I've definitely been in that situation before where I've been cheering for somebody that I needed and they got pinch hit for. I've also been in the opposite situation a couple of years ago where I was winning $100,000. There's only one game left, and it's like a 10-run game in like the 7th inning. And I was like, just pull your bats. Like everybody just pull your bats. And what was his name? The guy on the Padres, Cronenworth, hit a home run that cost me $75,000. They kept him in. They pulled a lot of their starters. He was like the one that I needed to be pulled. I think he was the only bat that could have cost me first place in that tournament. And of course he had a home run. So I've been in the opposite where I was just cheering for pull your bats. This is the end of the game. The game is over, and they didn't do it.
I feel like that's how it always goes, is it not?
It is how it always goes.
Never goes in. And now with that said, obviously it's really difficult to get everything to work in your favor all the time. But DFIC, I'm pretty reliant on stuff like the Top Stacks tool over at Stokast.com. It's my favorite tool that we have here. And baseball's been one of my most profitable DFS sports over the last couple of years. And I attribute a lot of that to our Top Stacks tool. I think it's the best way to figure out which teams you want to stack, which to be overweight, which to be underweight to. What other baseball tools, if any, are you the most reliant on, Neil?
I mean, it's Top Stacks by far, followed by Top Pitchers. I've been thinking about getting into lineup generator. I've used it maybe just like once or twice this year. I probably should just start using lineup generator more because I trust it at this point. But yeah, for the most part, for me, it is just Top Stacks. Top Pitchers are the two that I'm reliant on by far the most.
Right. Let me do one more thing here, and then I am about set with my lineups. Anything else you want to add to this slate before we finish here, Neil?
Go Marlins. Hopefully they win for us in DFS. Hopefully they win for me in my So Rare contest. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we haven't talked about that I feel like we need to. I'm not seeing any questions that we need answers to. So yeah, I'm trying to buy you time. I'm trying to come up with good things. I'm choking like I'm Jordan Klein right now. I'm trying to buy you time.
I can't get Jonathan Davis is still not showing up in my lineups, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I just realized that he's not showing up in my lineups, but all good.
Oh,
do you have any contrarian stacks you're getting overweight to?
Ryan had another super set. Top single entry stacks for FanDuel. Let me check out for FanDuel. I'm guessing it's still going to be the Marlins, but let me see if there's if the ownership is a lot higher there.
So for me, by the way, I'm playing the Marlins in single entry.
Okay. On FanDuel?
I think the Marlins everywhere. Like, I understand they're popular, but I'm not too concerned about the ownership because, like I said, I don't think that they are appropriately owned. Like, it doesn't matter that they're the second most popular stack on DraftKings or second most on FanDuel. What I care most is that they're still not appropriately owned relative to what their ownership is.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. If you want to go somewhere else, if you're thinking that Miami's going to get more steam in single entry, which sometimes happens, so if you're worried about that possibility, I might consider Boston here. Boston, we've got at 6% ownership, 7.8% chance of being the top stack on FanDuel. I wouldn't hate going there either.
Any other teams that you're making any kind of crazy stand on?
No, I'm not playing a ton of lineups. I'm playing some Seattle. I'm really just getting kind of chalkier. I'm playing some Red Sox, playing a lot of Marlins, playing some Seattle. I've got one Padres lineup also, kind of like the Pods. I think those are the only stacks I'm going to today for primary stacks.
Yeah. So for me, one other team that I just want to mention here is the Colorado Rockies. It's a Coors Field game. Whenever teams at Coors Field, they have upside. They're projected for 2.6% ownership as a team. We have them with 6.2% top stack odds. Whenever that kind of scenario arises, I know it's not a great matchup against Alcantara. Alcantara is the 5th most popular pitcher on the slate. The Rockies are crazy under-owned for us. It is a stack that I like getting to for that reason. So that's a team that I like for super low ownership in large field tournaments.
Yeah. I don't hate that. Michael Nack says, Neil, rank your flannels. That's like ranking your children. You can't rank your flannels. They're all beautiful in their own way.
Of course you could rank your flannels. There has to be one you wear more often than the other. If you say no, I don't believe you.
Okay. I'll rank them. My favorite is the green one. My second favorite is the blue one. My third favorite is the white one. Jordan's laughing at me. I can't even couldn't even tell you all my, like, I don't remember which flannels I have until I see them. But those are my 3 favorites.
You own like 5 pairs
Green,
of
blue,
blues.
white. Yeah.
You don't wash any of them.
And then I got the other blue one. Then I've got 2 blue ones. Yeah. So I like the one blue one better than the other blue one.
All right, there we go. I got everything fixed just in time. Any further thoughts, comments you have on the slate for us, Neil? It looks like we don't have any questions left.
I'm noticing Jordan Klein trolling me, says, I like how his favorite flannels are right next to him. That is correct. That is not wrong. I don't have any real other final thoughts on this slate. I'd say go Marlins. Let's crush with the Marlins tonight. Go Senga. Yeah, nothing really. And no, I'm not concerned. Somebody asked, is there a chance that the Yankees game is postponed? Yeah, there's a chance. Like, you never know. Like, it's not even just weather dependent. There's also like the decisions made by the people at the stadium. Sometimes they're just like, fuck it, it's been an hour, I want to go home and have a beer. So they call the game. So yeah, there's a little bit of risk there, but I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I also think that it's fairly unlikely that anything ends up happening with the game being canceled. Like, the weather, looking outside once again, it's not perfect, but it's supposed to be fine in like 30 or 45 minutes. So yeah. I think it'll be fine. I've got Nestor Cortes is my most rostered pitcher on the slate. And that goes to show you what I think about the potential weather here. Could I get screwed by it? Potentially, but I think it's a very low percentage outcome.
Yep.
All right. That is going to do it for us today, guys. If you have not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Prize Picks. They're sponsoring our show today. Don't forget, if you sign up at Prize Picks using the link we have below, up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Projections, tools for every single DFS sport out there. Hope you guys have a great slate. Good luck tonight. See you back here tomorrow. We're going to be covering NBA again.